One of the many benefits of being a Mott's Wealth Management client is the opportunity to meet and speak with industry specialists and professionals. Our speaker for the Financial Planning for Young Adults seminar is Melissa Motts, president of Mott's Wealth Management. She has over 30 years' experience in the tax and financial industry, is a CFP, CPA, and has a master's in taxation. This presentation was recorded on May 24th, 2017.
So thank you for coming to our Financial Planning for Young Adults seminar. We do this about once every 3 years. So I was looking back, it was back in 2014, the last time we did it. Our next event is our halftime report, and that's scheduled for July 26th right here at Hotel Fille Soleil. Invitations for the event will be mailed out soon, or emailed out soon too. If you're interested in introducing us to someone, but they haven't been able to come to this event, please let us know. We can get together for a private lunch or dinner or something like that. And also, we'll be sending out an email letting you know of tonight's video presentation. So you can always email it on to a friend or family or somebody like that that you think might be interested in viewing it as well. And a special thanks to our sponsor for the evening, Dan Miller, in the back there from PIMCO. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. All right, so lessons for life, and this is at any age. Anybody can get started doing the right thing at any time. So there's a quick quiz here. Would you describe yourself as living paycheck to paycheck? 75% of people said yes. Okay, so that means no savings building. They're just, everything they get in, they spend. All right, so 75%. So that's a pretty significant percentage of the population. If you learn that saving $50 a month over several decades might provide you with more than $500,000 when you retire. $50 a month. I mean, think of what you know, that's not that much, but over several decades, it can amount to over $500,000. Okay, so we'll show you how that works. So 60% said yes, that it would motivate them. And that's what we're looking for, how to motivate you. Because $50 seems like nothing. Like, what difference is that going to make? But boy, over time, it really adds up. And do you currently have any kind of debt? If yes, what type? So the average amount of credit card, this is from NerdWallet, is almost $17,000. Average amount of mortgage debt, $176,000. Auto loan, almost $29,000. Student loan debt, almost $50,000. So that's average. So if you're young and you've got student loan debt and you bought a car and you bought a house, I mean, you add all that up, that's a lot of debt, right? Yeah. So we'll be talking about debt. Good debt, bad debt, how to manage it. So then also asking, are you currently saving for retirement? So these are all, people in their 20s and 30s, they're asking. So 45% haven't started yet. All right, so when you leave here tonight, I don't want any of you to be any of those people. I want everybody to have started. Even if you haven't accumulated a lot yet, you got to start. That's the main thing. And do you currently use a financial advisor? So 62% of Americans do not have a financial advisor. We'll talk a little bit about that, how working with a financial advisor helps keep you on track. Helps keep you on track and helps you to reach your goals. So what does financial freedom look like? How about being able to pay your bills with money left over? Okay. Having a cushion for emergencies. So something goes wrong with the car, something, if you have a house, something goes wrong with the heater, you've got a cushion. Okay, so you're not like, oh my gosh, now what do we do, kind of thing. Because those are the kinds of things that don't feel very free. You kind of feel like you're trapped. So that's not a great feeling. And then watching money grow, like actually getting excited about it, seeing it grow over time and, feeling like, wow, yeah, feels very empowering. Buying things that you love without the guilt, okay? And being able to pay for family needs, okay? If you have children or, just any family needs, it could be. And then also to support causes you believe in. To be able to be charitable. It's a very good feeling. There are 11 financial lessons for life that we're going to go over tonight. And you can see those there. about number one, paying yourself first, starting early, making your money work, own, loan, and save. Okay? But the benefits are being the one that loans the money and that owns the stock, owns the company. Don't get emotional about investments. Okay? Our emotions are not a great, are not something you want to listen to when things get a little crazy. And it's hard to overcome that, but you can do it. Use debt sensibly. Take the match, we'll talk about that. And don't touch your 401k. If you have one and you leave a job or something, don't touch it. Like don't touch it, I mean don't take it out. You can roll it over, but we'll talk about that. Needs versus wants, and then saying I do to a financially strong marriage. So for any of you that are not married or thinking about getting married, really understanding what you're getting into there. Okay, so pay yourself first. Right there, spend less than you earn. If you just did that, that's all. That's it. I mean, that is like the key to everything. What we're going to be going over here is, okay, what do you do with it when you spend less than you earn? But that is number one, always. Anybody who has accumulated wealth always has spent less than they earned. And you see it even like, some elderly, like my mother, for instance, she hates taking money out of her savings. Once it's in there, she does not want to take it out. So it's just this mindset of, once you save it, but you have to spend less than you earn. If you get overextended and get into debt and so forth and you can't keep up, boy, that's a disaster. It does not feel good. So how much should you save? Think about your future and your objectives. So if you have an objective to buy a home, if you have an objective to get married, have a family, you want to educate your children. I mean, there are so many different things many people want. Retire someday, in a good position. Not be dependent on others for your financial security. So 10% of earnings, that is what's asked. And when you're young, especially before you have like a house and a mortgage and you have all those things, if you can get in the habit of doing that before you have a family and so forth, boy, that's just a habit. You're in it and you don't miss it, okay? If it's gone, when I say gone, it's saved, you don't even see it. And that's the great thing about like employer plans, like 401ks and things like that, because they'll take the money right out of your check so you don't even have a chance to spend it. So if 10% is too much, go back to your monthly expenses and try to rein in spending. See where you can save some money. So it adds up over time. If you earn $100, so 10% of that would be $10 before you do anything else. Then you don't have to budget, okay? There's a lot of things about budgeting, like, okay, you have to put money here, put money there. If you know you're putting the money away, then the rest of it, you're freer with it, okay? You know you've set it aside, you pay yourself first, now you can be creative, you can spend the money in ways that you want. So here are some ways that you can save money, right? Number one, take out. How about making food at home even, Even if if you want to get together with friends instead of going out to eat, everybody brings something, come over. Everybody, like a potluck, and everybody brings something and then everybody shares it. So it's still social, but it's way cheaper. Way, way cheaper. Exercising at home instead of at health club. Okay, there's another way you can save money. See how much if you belong to a gym, are you actually using it? You're paying that money every month, but are you going? Of course, coffee shop coffee is very expensive, right? Starbucks or any of those. So they're great for a treat, but not like every day or 5 days a week. Boy, that money is just gone. The stockholders of Starbucks love you. Yeah. And then getting basic cable. We actually cut our cable last year. So we have no more cable TV. We just have internet. And it is so awesome. You can get news, you can get all kinds of stuff on there. We have Netflix, so we pay for that, but it's way cheaper than cable. Anybody that's paying their own cable bill knows how much that goes up. It's just ridiculous. So you can opt for a basic cable instead of premium. And then also cell phone. That can get really expensive. Can get really expensive. So start early. And that applies to everybody here. It's never too late to start, no matter what your age. But investing, to really make it work for you, it is about time. Okay, so it's not about I've got to put a ton of money in. It's about just getting started and having time. So, will you be a millionaire? What would you do to become one? How about 3 things? The amount of invested, the rate of return, and how long the money is invested. That is what's going to tell you how much your money is going to grow to. Okay, so if you have an end goal, I want to be a millionaire by this date, here's the calculation. Okay, you can go backwards and see, okay, how would I do it? If you started at 16, if you put $219 away a month, this is for a 6% rate of return, and this is up to age 65, you would be a millionaire. At 25, $524 a month would make you a millionaire with a 6% return. If the return ends up being better, then you could be a millionaire sooner. And then 35, 45, and 55. So you can see, look at that. That's over double by waiting 9 years. That's almost double. So the longer you wait, the more you have to put away. So that's what's important about just getting started earlier. And, if you don't have the money, if you don't have $500 a month to put away, $100, $200, you can increase it, as your job, as you get raises and so forth. So just looking at this, starting at age 16, it would be $1 million. At age 25, it comes up to $567,000. At 35, $289,748. The same amount. So this is an annual investment of $3,665, but starting at different ages. So look at the difference, starting just 10 years earlier between 25 and 35. That's huge. And the power of systematic investing. Is anybody familiar with dollar cost averaging at all? Yeah, what the term means is, up here there's a lump sum. Money is put in on the date. Okay, $1,200 all at once. You're buying whatever the market is at that time. And you don't know. It could work out to have been a good time to buy if things go up after that, or it might not. If things go down, it might not have been a great time to buy. But you never know that until after the fact. Dollar cost averaging is if you're putting in $100 every month, so you're still putting in $1,200, but the price of the shares of what you're buying go up and down, you get shares. So at the beginning here, if the share price is $10 a share, you get 10 shares for $100. If the share price is 12, you get 8.3 shares. If the price per share is $14 a share, you get 7.1. Okay, and you can see down here, if the price goes down to $5 a share, you can get 20 shares for $100. So the whole point is when you're investing, and sometimes people can get upset, they start investing and then the market goes down. And they get their account statement and they say, oh no, it went down. It's on sale, okay? It's always better to buy things on sale. So if you're putting in, but you're putting it in automatically, trying to wait and say, okay, I'm going to put in when it hits this, and then it hits it, and you're like, well, maybe it'll go a little lower, I'll wait, Like playing that game doesn't really work. So if you just set it up to automatically do it, every month you end up with 144 shares instead of 120 shares in this example. So what you're doing when you're a buyer is you want to accumulate more shares. The value of the shares will go up and down, but what your goal is more shares. So if you get your statement and the value might have gone down, but look at the number of shares you now have. If you're investing, like if you're on your 401k or so forth, as long as those shares are going up, you're getting ahead, okay? And you might have gotten some things on sale, so that's really good too. So make your money work, okay? We all work, right? Okay, we put our time in, we go to work. Some of us are just getting out of school. We were working when we were in school, right, as students, and then we're going to be going out into the workforce. So most people work hard for their money, but forget to ask their money to return the favor. All right? We have this thing called inflation. So I'll go over what that is. Inflation drives up prices, and over long periods of time, it adds up. So your money needs to work to keep up. A movie ticket, 20 years ago was average $4.59. 5 years ago it was $7.96. Look at the Disney World Day Pass. It was $40 20 years ago, $89 5 years ago, and a new car. $19,000, average $25,000. So let's see how much it went up in 5 years. Look at this for the car. Okay, that's what inflation does. Yeah, look at this. This is $8,000 in 5 years. So it does. It really, so your purchasing power has to grow. And that's where putting money away and investing it has your money working for you. So you're working, you're putting the money away, okay? You're doing what you need to do. Then the money has to work so it can keep up and grow, so it can buy you what you need when you go to retire or when college, because we don't have college tuition in here. You know, college costs have definitely gone up over the last 5 years. Even though I was just at a webinar the other day and they were talking about free education, 20 years from now. So that'll be interesting. We'll see. So lesson 4, own, loan, and save. These are cumulative total returns. This is from January of 2003 through November of 2015. So there are different ways you can invest your money. Treasury bills would be like a savings account kind of thing. So you see how very little growth that had over the 12-year time frame? But it doesn't fluctuate, okay? Treasury bonds, which would be, I'll give you an example here. So if you put your money in the bank, what does the bank do with it? They loan it out, right? Okay. So if you borrow the money, then you're a borrower. You're not a loaner. You put the money in the bank, essentially you're a loaner. You're giving the bank the money. They loan it out. You get paid. What do you get paid now in a bank account? Maybe 0.5%? Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. And they're not loaning it out at 0.5%, right? No, they're loaning it out a lot more than that. Okay, so they get the difference. Okay, but your money isn't going to go up and down. So if you're needing to save for something that you're going to need the money for in a couple of years, that's what you want to do. You put it in a savings account. Now, treasury bonds, okay, what are treasury bonds? They are where the federal government is borrowing from whoever puts money, whoever buys a treasury bond, they are the lender, and the federal government is the borrower. And the federal government pays interest to the bondholders. And we can see the total returns throughout time, throughout these years. Now, they've gone up and down, but see, you would have ended up with more money, right, than just putting it in a savings account. But there's more risk. So you need time. You need long stretches of time, like 5 years or so, to be able to weather these ups and downs. And then there's the stock market, the S&P 500. So here's the S&P 500. That's 500 companies. So you can see that went up. Now, here was 2008 and 2009. Same thing. If you put your money in here in 2007, and then you had to take it out in 2009, oh boy, not good. You get half your money, okay? But if you're doing that dollar cost averaging all the way down, and you're getting your statement every time, you're like, oh no, no, no. And you're buying, and that's going to like, oh, good, oh, look at that, wow, So over time, you're buying cheap when it's down, and then the price starts to go up. All those shares you bought and accumulated for a low price, and you got more shares. Now, when the value goes up, you're really seeing your statement really increase, the value. So there are 3 different ways to invest: short term, and then longer term with bonds and stocks. So if you had a $1,000 investment, okay, you put it in stocks. If you started in 1989, this is in December 1989, very end of the year, your $1,000 would have grown by the end of last year to be $11,325. Okay, it's over 1,000% return. That's pretty good. The 80s and the 90s were wonderful years for the stock market. Now look at the difference when you start 99, put 1,000 in. I mean, still double your money, but not quite the same returns. Okay, much lower. And then here are for bonds, the treasury bonds. You can see if you put $1,000 in, it would have gone up in value. If you started in 89, would have gone up more, you had time. So it's usually good to have some of each, some bonds and some stocks. So owning stock. When you're buying stock, think about the business you're investing in and what you're buying. Okay? And that's the whole thing with time. You don't know, but if you buy a company that's well run, you know, their products are selling, you use them, you know them, that's a good thing. You've got some confidence there. Then you're a shareholder. When you're a shareholder and you own a company, there are two ways you get paid. One way is you can get dividends. Okay, so just like a savings account where they pay you interest and you see it appear, you know, on your statement or online, you get dividends. And you can reinvest the dividends back to buy more stock. Okay? Or you can get growth in the value of your shares. Companies can take money, instead of paying it out in dividends, they can reinvest it back into their company to help it grow. And then you expect to see the share price growing more, and then you're going to get dividends. They also buy back their own stock. So companies will go out and buy back their own stock, so there's less shares out in the market, and that drives up the price also. So there are different ways that you can be paid back as an owner. But it's also nice, you know, like if you own something like, you know, we use a lot of funds and exchange traded funds and mutual funds. If you own, you know, if there are banks in there and you say you have a loan with a bank, but you own the stock in a fund, well, some of that's coming back to you as an owner. You know, you're benefiting from it. So it always pays to be an owner, you know, always. But sometimes you will sell your stock for less than you paid for it. Okay? So Apple was down last year. Okay, it was up 25% the first quarter of this year, but it was down last year. All right, and I think the year before it was down too for part of the year. So someone that bought midway in 2015 would have had a tough year and a half. But then they waited and they were rewarded. But you don't want to never put too much of your money in a single investment. That's why funds, mutual funds that invest in lots of different companies, or exchange traded funds, those are good to have. If you're interested in, you know, building a stock portfolio, you want to keep the amounts small that you put into every company so it's diversified. Okay, because it happens. So here we're talking about diversification. Divide them across asset classes. That means stocks, bonds. Okay, and within stocks there are different types of asset classes. There's international stocks, there's small company stocks, large company stocks, all different kinds. Emerging markets that are like Korea, Mexico, Thailand, different places like that. So a longer time horizon can withstand more exposure to risk with higher stock allocations. So this is a tip. Subtract your age from 100, the remainder is a percentage you may want to invest in stocks. Now that's a general thing. Some people have more stomach for the volatility and they don't mind it. You know, if they know, like, you know, I'm 30 and I'm not going to be using this money for another 35 years, it's okay if it goes up and down. I'm okay putting more of it in stocks. You know, what I've seen happen, unfortunately, is not all the time, but especially for young people who came of age, like, you know, graduating high school, things like that, like around 2008 and 9, when we had that big financial collapse. And they saw what happened in the news, okay, their parents, you know, just people they knew, friends, parents and things having issues. A lot of young people have become very wary about putting their money in stocks. But that is the way you're going to grow it over time. You know, that's the only way. So that's part of it. But you just keep in mind, like, okay, I don't have to take it out. So if it goes down, I'm still buying. I'm buying on sale. So this is from 1926 to 2015. So it's just about 90 years. You can see average returns. Nominal is including inflation. So real is without inflation. So this is what you would see, your returns. So stock market, S&P 500, 10%. You take that over years, 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%, 10%. I mean, money doubles quick that way. Long-term government bonds, average 5.61. Right now they're down about 2.3%. We're in a very low interest rate environment. So that's all the more reason to be wanting, especially when you're young, take more risk, you know, to put money in stocks for the long-term investments. And then don't get emotional. It's easy to get greedy in a rising market and pat yourself on the back and say, boy, I'm so smart, I'm brilliant, I made this great call. And it's also easy to get scared in a falling market. Like, oh my gosh, it's going to keep going. As human beings, we think whatever direction things are going is going to keep going, whatever, it could go up or down. But it doesn't. It cycles, up and down. I mean, money basically moves from when things get overvalued, money will move into things that are undervalued. It's kind of like water, It's like this. Overvalued, money will start to sell out, find the undervalued things, and then they'll start to go up. You can even see that like in if you look in certain areas, like in the city, like in Philly, say, for instance, and you see certain neighborhoods, like, they were kind of run down a bit, and then people started putting money in, and then restaurants start going, and then, and then that gets built up, and then they sell, and they go into another neighborhood, and build it up, and so forth. So that's what happens. So this is the emotional roller coaster of investing. On the way up, it feels great. Then you start to get nervous. And you get scared, and then defeated, and then encouraged. So this is always the best opportunity to make money. But again, you never know what the low is until after you've hit it. Okay? Never. It's always in hindsight. So when it's scary, that's when you want to make sure you hang in there. Focus on the long term. All right, so debt. A good debt is when the value of your purchase increases as the loan balance decreases. So what would be an example of that? House. What would be something where the value of the purchase decreases as the loan balance decreases? Car. Technology. Yeah. So that's why you don't want to spend a lot of money on a car, if you can't afford it. That's where you pay yourself first, and then you see what's left. Because the thing about debt, how do you get out of debt? Like, how do you get, like, once you sign on the dotted line and you owe that money, okay? That's a contract. That's a legal contract. Nobody's going to say, like you say, oh, I didn't realize, I didn't know that this was that and that was this. Too bad. You signed. You're an adult. You are obligated. You've got to pay it. You've got to pay the interest you agreed to. If you're late, you pay the late penalties, etc. It's very unforgiving. Okay? So the point is, know what you're signing. Understand the terms of it. Okay? A lot of people focus on the monthly payment, and that's what a lot of salespeople will do. They try to get you into just looking at the monthly payment. You want to know what interest rate you're paying. You want to know how many months you're paying it. You want to know what you're paying. Like, what's this costing? What's this car costing me? So, credit cards. So if you owed $6,885 on credit cards, and you made your minimum payment, which is 2% of the balance, your monthly payments will decrease as your balance gets paid. Okay, so this is assuming you're not putting any more money on the credit card. But then look at how much you're paying in interest, and then how much you pay in total. It's ridiculous. I mean, credit cards are what? What rates? Over 20%, a lot of them? Yeah, it's crazy. Really? You really want to buy this and assume you're just going to make the minimum payment because that's all you can afford. I would say don't buy it, whatever it is. So student loan debt, a lot of us hear about that, right? But I do want to remind you that for an associate's degree, you are going to make more money. For a bachelor's degree, you're going to make a lot more money. For a master's degree, you're going to make more, and for a doctoral. The thing, though, with student debt, it's like any debt. It's just like the car debt. Understand what you're paying for. Understand that, gee whiz, I'm going to be on the hook for all this money when I get out of school, and I've got to pay it back. And how is that going to impact my lifestyle? And is it worth going to this college that costs this much, or to a lower cost college that I can get the same kind of income from when I graduate? So real important. So it can help you achieve financial success. The biggest issue are for people that get debt and they don't graduate. Okay? They don't finish. Oh man, they're really, because they're stuck down here making what they make, but yet they've got the debt that they've got to pay off. So that's tough. That's a tough position to be in. So tips for debt. compare the total cost for large purchases. If you're buying a car, what are you paying for the car? That's what you want to know. $30,000, $31,000, $28,000, then you can, shop and know what you're paying. Don't carry a credit card balance. Pay it off every month if you have a credit card. Every month. Okay? Otherwise, you're going to add up all that interest we saw in that other chart. Shorten the length of your loans. Okay? Put extra payments against them. Don't just pay the minimum. And you can always go back to the lender and ask for a better rate. Can't hurt to ask. And that can happen with credit cards. So you could transfer a high rate credit card balance to a lower rate card, but you have to have a good credit rating to do this. Okay? If not, if you don't have a good credit score, you won't be able to get the good rates, the good low rate cards. Call a credit card company, renegotiate, or refinancing your mortgage if you have a house. What this chart shows is this is making the minimum monthly payments. If you have an 18% rate that you're paying, it takes 19 and a quarter years to pay it off, and you pay, and this is on a $1,000 credit card balance, you end up paying $1,931 in interest. Just interest, plus the $1,000 you had to pay back. If you double the payment on an 18%, you get it paid off in 7 and a quarter years, and you only pay $515 in interest. Okay, so shorten it, and then so if you get the rate down, and if you can add payments to it. So the important thing with credit card habits are never go into a store without a list. Wait until cash is available to buy the big ticket item. Save for it. Okay, save for it. And that's hard to do nowadays. Most people don't want to wait. They want it now. Instant. I want it. But it's a really good muscle. It's like building up any muscle. If you can put it off and save for it, it feels really good when you actually meet that, think about college, When you went to college, you didn't go in and get your degree like a month later. You had to work for it. So it's the same thing. You save. Don't shop for fun. Forget them all for recreation. Or you can just use credit card for emergencies. Don't use it to pay day-to-day living expenses. If you're going to go out with your friends and you're going to the mall or whatever, just don't take your credit card. Just take cash. That's all I'm spending. That's it. So, okay, 401k. So, the benefits of a 401k contribution. One of the benefits of contributing to a 401k is that whatever you put into a 401k reduces your taxable income. So you save on taxes. Anybody here want to pay more taxes? No, I don't think so. And then you earn extra money with a match. So in this case, if you put $1 in and your employer matches 50% of what you put in, right off the bat, you've made 50% on your money. Who can beat that? Okay? So a lot of employers will have they'll match a certain percentage up to 6%, So it might be, we'll put in 50% up to 6%. So if you put 6 in, they put 3 in, you got 9. Boy, that's awesome. And you save money, you save taxes on the 6 that you put in. Okay? Because that lowers your income. So you should always contribute at least enough to get the full match. Always. Okay? When you start a new job or something, they have a 401k, as soon as you can do it, start putting that money in just to get the match. Okay? If you can put in more, great. But you at least want to get that. 50% is an awesome rate of return. So this is how it could reduce your tax bill. If you have an annual income of $40,000, you put $3,000 into your 401k. On your W-2, the wages that you're going to include in your tax return is going to be $37,000. Okay? Comes right off. If you were in a 28% tax bracket, that's $840. It's like Uncle Sam put $840 into your 401k for you. Okay? Plus your employer's matching it. So it's good, good, good. It's a win-win from every direction. So the one thing to know, this money is for retirement. It is not to be taken out ahead of time. So you do pay taxes eventually on it when you take it out. Okay, but then you'll be much older and it'll grow. So here's annual investments over 20 years in a tax-deferred account with a 6% annual rate of return. If you're 25 to age 44 and you put $1,000 a year in for those 20 years, it would come to $125,000 by the time you're 65. If you start at 45, $2,000 a year, so you're putting in twice as much for 20 years, but you start at 45, it's only going to amount to $77,985. So start young. You can make a big difference. Okay, don't touch it once you put it in. Okay, so let's say you leave a job and you want to take a trip to Aruba. And you've got that money in the 401k sitting there. Okay, it's $5,000 for this trip you want to take. So how much will it cost if you cashed out your 401k early? Actually, all these answers are right. So $5,000 is what you pay for the trip. $8,000 is what you have to actually take out to net $5,000 after you pay the taxes and penalties. So your trip cost you $8,000 actually after you pay the taxes on it to net $5,000. Here's what the $8,000 would have grown to, okay, up to age 65. So you lost all those gains up to your retirement age. And then if you look at, well, once you retire and you start taking some money out every month to live on, this is what, over your lifetime, what you would lose from an $8,000 withdrawal. Okay, don't touch it. Most people don't think about that, what they're losing in the future, but it really adds up. Okay, so if you switch jobs and you get a severance package, you want to balance your short-term versus long-term needs and goals, manage company stock and options, and you've got your options here for your 401k, your retirement plan distributions. Don't do this. We just talked about that. You can transfer it to your new employer's retirement plan tax-free, okay, no tax. You can leave the money in your former employer's retirement plan, okay, it doesn't cost you anything to do that, or you can roll it over into an IRA, okay, no tax. So all these three, no tax. This one is the one you want to stay away from, that first one. So needs versus wants. So here we go. $609 a month for a Cadillac versus a Hyundai, $169. How about housing? Luxury one-bedroom apartment, $4,000 versus a one-bedroom apartment, average one-bedroom apartment. And here's the food, right? Dining in versus dining out. That's where it adds up. Per person, average. So limit your splurges to what really matters to you. That's really all it's about. It's about not being unconscious when you're spending your money. It's just like, oh yeah, we do this, we do that. That unconscious behavior just adds up over time. Be conscious about what you're doing, what it's costing you. You know, one of the biggest things I think people really can get hung up on is getting new cars every few years. That really sucks a lot of money out of your potential for savings when you're young. And then also eating out can be a big one. So if you can stay home and sponge off your parents for as long as possible, that's a really good idea. Because then you're not out all the apartment living and so forth. Save the money, put it away, right? Then buy a house. You buy a house, you get tax deductions. Under the current tax law, I don't know what that might change to, but under current tax law, you get deductions for that. So yeah, make smart choices. Okay, and then the last one, say I do to a financially strong marriage. So this is really important for anybody that may be thinking about getting married. Assess the spending and saving habits. Are they compatible? All right, so understand. I'm a saver, he's a spender. Okay, let's talk about this. Or vice versa, I'm the spender, he's the saver. I don't want somebody telling me what I can't spend and, blah, 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 whatever it might be. It's really just important to, get it all out on the table. Consider establishing joint accounts. Decide who will have the day-to-day responsibilities, but get together to make big decisions. I would say, really, couples that I know that, they just have very successful marriages, they talk about this stuff. The big decisions, they talk about them. Okay? It's really important to respect everybody's opinion. And then make sure you're on the same page for short-term and long-term goals. And of course, if you do get married, don't forget to change beneficiaries at work and so forth, and on any life insurance you might have. Make sure you get wills and life insurance, especially if you buy a house together or something like that. And of course, when you have children, you definitely need to have life insurance if you have little ones. So this is for the women in the room here. 90% of women end up managing their finances at some point in their lives. Okay? So good to get familiar with what's going on. All right? It's very easy in a relationship to say, oh, well, I do this and he does that, and I don't need to know about that stuff, But at some point, 90% of us women will end up managing our own finances. And we can see here, women typically earn less than men in benefits because they get paid less, for one thing, unfortunately, but also because they take time off to have children, to stay home with children, and then they don't get the Social Security benefits, okay, because they don't have the earnings that go into it. Pensions for you guys are pretty much a thing of the past. Teachers get them, Yeah, teachers have them, state employees, government employees, and some companies still have them. But even companies that have them for newer work, if you've been there a while, you get grandfathered in. If you're a newer worker, many times you don't have access to them anymore. Okay? So what that means is for mostly everybody here is you have to put money away for your retirement. Okay? And then, just like we saw, the younger you start, the more it grows. Okay, so knowing what you should do is the first step. So next step, spend less than you earn. Okay, see what you're making? Spend less. Put it aside, put it aside, put it aside. Great to have like an automatic, a Roth IRA is a great thing for anybody that's young. Okay? Automatically coming out of your checking account. If you have an employer plan, 401k or whatever, in it. Just sign up for it. Take the money right out of your pay. Okay? Invest the difference. And of course, contact your financial professional. So remember, the reason why you're doing these things is because you want to be independent. Okay? Just like someday, when you were young, you were dependent on your parents for so many things. And then you hit an age and you're like, okay, I don't want to be dependent on. I make my own decisions. I stand on my own 2 feet. Okay? Financial independence is a very empowering place to be. Okay? We see, people all the time on the news or, different stories you read, people that are not financially independent, they're stuck. They get stuck. It's a terrible place to be. So financial independence is definitely something you want to strive for in your lives. Okay? Because you make your choices, you decide where you want to live, you can spend money without guilt, you've got that money growing, you're doing all the right things, you've kept your lifestyle so that it's less than what you make. So if something happens, during the financial crisis, a lot of people lost their jobs. Okay? And we had, foreclosures and all kinds of stuff going on, right? But if you're spending less than you make and you don't get yourself high into debt, okay, that you have to pay, and you lose your job, you've got a cushion, you've been putting money aside, you're in good shape. Okay? You can make it last. And I had some clients like that lost their jobs in the financial crisis because they had money set aside and they were spending less than they earned. They were able to get through it, get another job, and then just pick up where they left off. Okay? Other people that are in situations like that, they can get into that and they can never recover financially sometimes. It's really tough. So good habits, that's the main thing. Yep. And using a financial advisor really helps people feel more confident about their situation. So a very high percentage, 67% of men and 66% of women feel more comfortable about investing when they work with a financial professional. Because they're not just trying to read stuff on the internet and you get contradicting information here and there. You know, you've got some guidance, so it's really helpful. And they feel more knowledgeable about investing and more confident about having money for their future. So people, they've done many studies, people that use a financial advisor typically will meet their goals. They have a much better, higher percentage chance of meeting their goals. So, well, thank you everyone for coming. And make sure you check out the handouts that we have there for you too, to help you out with anything.
I hope you enjoyed listening to Melissa Motz, and if you have a friend or relative who is considering their financial options, please feel free to invite them to accompany you to one of our upcoming events. Visit our website at www.motzwealthmanagement.com for the most up-to-date listing of these events. Over the years, many of our clients have asked Melissa to speak with a friend, relative, or colleague concerning private financial management. Melissa considers it an honor and a privilege and has been happy to accommodate those wishes. For your future reference, please be aware of the standards by which she complies with such requests. First, confidentiality is a cornerstone of our business. Each of our client relationships is distinctly separate and totally private. Second, thoughtful and courteous service is guaranteed. This is a people business. Finally, Melissa will never give advice and counsel to a client without thoroughly understanding his or her needs. Please contact us at 215-513-6240 or send Melissa an email at melissa@motzwealthmanagement.com. Melissa H. Motz is a registered representative, securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer, member FINRA SIPC. Melissa H. Motz is an investment advisor representative, Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Motz Wealth Management and Cambridge are not affiliated.